Bonjour, voici la présentation du chapitre 1 d'un livre écrit par Aldous Huxley, né en 1894, mort en 1963. This is the presentation of chapter 1 of a novel called Brave New World, written by Aldous Huxley, born in 1894 and who died in 1963. As you can see, he died very old and had a very long life. So in the first picture you can see him very young, smoking with glasses, and due to a disease he lost sight and didn't turn to science but to literature. You can see one of his quotes here. Most human beings have an almost infinite capacity for taking things for granted, which means that we don't realize how lucky we are. That men do not learn very much from the lessons of history is the most important of all the lessons of history. So apparently, he thought that human beings didn't learn anything from their past, which is a shame. Donc, comme je l'ai dit précédemment, Aldous Huxley, qui était né dans une famille de scientifiques, n'a pas pu continuer sa passion, les recherches scientifiques, en raison d'une maladie qui le rendit presque aveugle. Il se tourna donc vers la littérature, et c'est son 5e roman, Brave New World, écrit en 1931, qui deviendra très célèbre. Vous voyez ici la couverture de ce roman, Brave New World. Sur la gauche, on voit un homme prisonnier d'un système. Sur la droite, une autre illustration qui représente des êtres clonés dans des sortes de tubes à essai ou des bocaux. Si l'on regarde la première phrase qui est écrite Brave New World dans Wikipédia, on trouve It's a novel set in a dystopian London. Dystopian means that something went wrong in paradise. People had designed a world they thought would be perfect, but in fact, which turned into a nightmare. Voici comment les gens se représentaient le monde futur en 1930. Ils avaient déjà une bonne vision de ce qui pourrait se passer, comme vous le voyez avec une conversation en temps réel avec des casques, une sorte de FaceTime, aussi une société de loisirs puisque les gens ont l'air détendus et portent des sortes d'uniformes, des pantalons, ce qui pour les femmes n'était pas la mode en 1930. Donc c'était un moment où les esprits étaient assez créatifs, et en particulier Aldous Huxley, quand il crée cette société imaginaire à Londres, il a déjà une bonne vision de ce qui va se passer dans le futur. Donc dans le détail, un peu de vocabulaire. So people thought that there would be more communication using headphones and portable phones as well. So they had already a vision of what we are using today, FaceTime, which is instant communication. Also in the background you can see fast cars and a world of relaxation with people having a drink and smoking cigarettes. So this is a vision of the future in a troubled Europe in 1930, when there were lots of tensions everywhere, especially in Germany, for example. Donc, comme je l'ai répété tout à l'heure dans le premier chapitre, on a une vision assez cauchemardesque de la reproduction humaine avec des fertiliseurs qui vont permettre d'incuber des êtres humains. Donc on a retiré du processus de reproduction la femme et l'homme. L'union ne deviennent plus la raison pour laquelle les gens se reproduisent. On le fait de façon scientifique. Évidemment, derrière cette idée de sélection plutôt scientifique, on retire le hasard que crée la sélection naturelle. Et le monde dans Brave New World est séparé en castes in English, social classes, qui vont de alpha à epsilon, des lettres grecques. Donc on a une hiérarchie entre celui qui a le pouvoir et celui qui est l'esclave, le dernier. Donc une sorte de gradation et des rôles plus ou moins valorisants. So the world pictured in Brave New World is that of a society divided into social classes, starting with alphas, who are in control, down to epsilon, who are slaves of the system and have nothing to say. So we get a hierarchy between those people. There's a strict control of decision made, so people don't have their say. It means that choices are eradicated. You cannot be free, you cannot make choices. Everything is decided for you, which is what we call a dystopia, where everybody has lost control. This is an idea we find in many other stories. For example, the very popular one these days, Divergent. So the first chapter opens in a sort of a lab where human beings are being made in test tubes. This is what you can see in this picture with a hand sticking out. So there's no more natural reproduction. They have discarded all kinds of accidents. They'd rather control the birth and the design of a human being from the beginning to the end, which also means that you don't get to choose who you fall in love with, and you don't get to choose when and where you make babies. Lisons ensemble les premières lignes de Chapter 1. Donc je vais expliquer une partie du chapitre avec des commentaires en français et en anglais pour vous aider à le comprendre. Je vais commenter les phrases, les lire en anglais et en français. Donc, Chapter 1. A squat grey building of only 34 stories. 34 stories is the number of floors in this building. Donc un bâtiment d'assez petite taille, 34 étages, c'est pas très grand. Over the main entrance, the words Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Centre, and in a shield, the World State's motto, Community, Identity, Stability. First of all, we find in this place a hatchery. It's a place normally where chickens grow eggs, and here it's not for eggs. And conditioning center, we get to understand that science is involved. A shield is what Achilles is carrying to protect himself, where you can find armories normally, but here it's a motto. A motto is a proverb, a sentence you think is important. Here the three important words are community, so the group, identity, who I am, and stability, of course, no chaos, everything is stable. Le ton est donné, on arrive dans un bâtiment qui conditionne quelque chose. Visiblement, c'est une couveuse, le mot hatchery le laisse présager. On voit tout de suite que le gouvernement prend toute la place, il a donné une devise. Donc la communauté, l'identité, la stabilité, ce sont des mots transparents. Et on est dans un endroit, dans un bâtiment de 34 étages. The enormous room on the ground floor faced towards the north. Cold for all the summer beyond the panes, for all the tropical heat of the room itself, a hard thin light glares through the window, hungrily seeking some draped lay figure, some pallid face of academic goose flesh, but finding only the glass and nickel and bleakly shining porcelain of a laboratory. We get a few adjectives to describe the place. It's cold when you don't look through the window panes, and it's also very hot inside, tropical heat. You get a lot of light, like in a lab. It's harsh, so we get the feeling that it's not a pleasant place to be. There's a sort of you get struck by the light, so people need to see to manipulate stuff visibly. The overalls of the worker were white, their hands gloved with a pale corpse-colored rubber. The light was frozen, dead, a ghost. Only from the yellow barrels of the microscopes did it borrow a certain rich and living substance, lying along the polished tubes like butter, streak after luscious streak in long recession down the work tables. Now we get to have a look at the workers. So there are people there. They are wearing uniforms, overalls or dungarees. There's a repetition of the color white, pale, light again. There's butter, which is like white, yellowish white. And also here we get a negative impression of people working with gloves, rubber gloves. And the light is not warm here, it's frozen, as if there was no life anymore, except for here, under the microscopes, something is rich and living. Donc dans cette première partie, on a atterri dans un espèce de laboratoire où ils font des expériences, et j'essaie d'avoir une image mentale. Donc il y a beaucoup de scientifiques qui se sont inspirés de la littérature aussi, bien sûr, pour faire des films, et je vous ferai voir une scène d'un film de science-fiction qui me rappelle totalement cette première scène. Essayez d'y penser aussi pour essayer d'anticiper. And this, said the director opening the door, is the fertilizing room. On est au cœur donc de cette organisation. Il y a un endroit où visiblement il y a des choses qu'on fait pousser. S'agit-il de plantes? Nous allons voir. Je continue la lecture. Bent over their instruments, 300 fertilizers were plunged as the director of hatcheries and conditioning entered the room. In the scarcely breathing silence, the absent-minded, soliloquizing hum or whistle of absorbed concentration. A troop of newly arrived students, very young, pink and callow, followed nervously, rather abjectly, at the director's heels. Each of them carried a notebook, in which, whenever the great man spoke, he desperately scribbled. Straight from the house's mouth. It was a rare privilege. The THC for Central London always made a point of personality conducting his new students round the various departments. So apparently, there's a group of young students who is being given a tour. So they have just arrived and they are very busy scribbling, writing notes in their notebooks. Just to give you a general idea, he would explain to them. For of course some sort of general idea they must have if they were to do their work intelligently. Through at least turn of one, if they were to be good and happy members of society, as possible. For particulars, as everyone knows, make for virtue and happiness. Generalities are intellectually necessary evils. Not philosophers, but Fred Sawyers and stamp collectors compose the backbone of society. Here, these new kids, students, are supposed to do their work intelligently. That is to say, they must think, they must be intelligent, and the world is supposed to be virtuous and happy. Tomorrow, you would add, smiling at them with a slightly menacing geniality, you'll be sitting down to serious work. You won't have time for generalities. Meanwhile, it was a privilege, straight from the house's mouth into the notebook. The boys scribbled like mad. We see that the students are eager to learn and they're going to get into action as early as tomorrow. Donc déjà, les jeunes sont plongés dans le monde du travail, ils vont déjà être acteurs et ils n'auront plus l'occasion d'observer, mais d'agir.